You've invested in a bunch of companies. Do you want to talk to people about, the horror stories, but also maybe, what goes into a good entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think the number one quality is perseverance for a good entrepreneur. You just have to keep going back to the trough. Very few people are Mark Zuckerberg that hit it right on the first crack. More it's Jeff Bezos where you work and then you finally find the right path. Communication, as I said, is a huge skill set that they need to have. And then flexibility of mind, a bit of ego, but not overwhelming ego. And we have a no asshole rule at Juvenescence. So you try to hire people who get along and they're nice. Horror stories are people will shock you. And so if there's a company dependent upon one or two individuals, it's a problem because they'll have a marriage breakup and they'll fall into depression. They'll overextend themselves. And one of the cases was the guy bought a house he couldn't afford. So he had a mortgage he couldn't afford. So he started stealing money from the company. That was something it clearly could not have anticipated. Somebody's going to buy too much of a house and they're going to steal money. So, but the fail safe is, if you've got a team, you can deal with, the outlier. And you have to be a bit ruthless if people are going down a fraudulent path. I mean, if it's just an emotional issue that you can help them with, clearly you try to help.
Do you want to pick, and it doesn't need to be your most successful, but your favorite or an interesting investment you made in the, really in the past 20 years? If anything comes to mind, we're like, oh, this was cool. I looked at this and, threw some money at it at first. I mean, if it worked out, it worked out. If not, then...
Clearly the Biohaven story was extraordinary. To meet somebody, to feel that confident, that quick, and to have it accelerated that, speed. And hats off to Vlad Korich. Jeff, has done an amazing job growing into the role of CEO and building out an extraordinary opportunity. So those are the wonderful ones where you have that and it just all sort of clicks. On the failure side, it was interesting to me. One of my failures is a company called Apexa, and it was for multiple sclerosis, and it was the ability to try and control T cells so they wouldn't attack the myelin, which is the cause drives people into MS. It was one where I thought the science was compelling and it had to see the light of day. So I really went to bat to try and raise the money for that one. Unfortunately, it didn't work in the clinical trial. We were not able to reproduce the results of phase 1 and phase 2. But every now and again, you get one where it's so important that you step out. At Juvenescence, we have a company called Subian. Lee Wei and Stephen Haggerty, MIT, Harvard, are the two professors and scientists. And they're trying to modify your genes as an adult to prevent you from getting Alzheimer's disease. This is one that has to see the light of day to me. What a profound effect it will have on society if we're able to prevent Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I think it's a great opportunity, so I'm not taking a complete shot. It's not a great deal of money, but it has to see the light of day.
Greg, what's a typical day for a Dr. Greg Bailey when he wakes up? What time does he wake up? What does he do? What does he eat? What goes through his mind? How's your day scheduled? Do you do it yourself? What do you have for dinner? What time do you go to bed? Give us your typical day.
So basically, I live between three cities, Toronto, Los Angeles, and London, England. And I sort of keep my schedule transatlantic. So in LA, I'm waking up at 6 in the morning. In London, I'm waking up at 10 in the morning. I'm also often dealing with the West Coast, which is why, again, I cheat the schedule in England. Typical day is usually, just wake up. I actually started doing yoga, sort of with some stretching in the mornings immediately. And then I write on the phone. I skip breakfast. First meal, whichever geography I'm in, is lunch. So it's mainly phone calls, catching up on emails, depending on where I am, is, all part of the day. I get about 300 emails a day. So I do have somebody who schedules. I lost control of my schedule about 2 years ago. Christine handles that. And then from there, at lunch, it's basically fish or chicken, a little bit of protein, and 4 or 5 servings of vegetables. I have a sweet tooth, so quite often I finish with something sweet. Definitely my vice, my shortcoming. Throughout the calls, by the way, every 20 minutes I get up and I do some sort of exercise along the way, whether it's, yoga position, sit-ups, push-ups, or I have a little bit of weights. So that, because you're not supposed to, sit for a prolonged period of time, so that's the new smoking. So every 20 minutes, you're supposed to get up and circulate. Back to work after lunch, more phone calls, can go into whatever time, 8, 9 o'clock if I'm in London. And if I'm in the Los Angeles, usually ends around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whereupon I go to the gym for an hour and a half an hour of biking and an hour of weights. And then, dinner again is some sort of combination of chicken, fish, and another 5 or 6 vegetables. Also, I have 3 to 5 different fruits, usually with lunch. So I have a collage of fruits, including blueberries, strawberries, for vitamin C, antioxidants. The blueberry skins are supposed to have a role in preventing cognitive decline. Try to make sure that I allow myself 9 hours in bed, hopefully to get 8 hours of sleep. And I drink probably 1.5 liters of water during the day. And then throw in yoga periodically and go out biking, instead of the weights occasionally.
And do you take supplements and stuff, or?
I definitely biohack. I take metformin. Had some really interesting results in decreasing your chance of cancer, based probably on the fact that cancers prefer sugar, and it takes sugar down. In and around age 50, you become insulin resistant, which means that the insulin no longer brings the sugar down in your various organs, or in the case of a malignancy, and particularly problematic in the brain. About 5 or 6 years ago now, began to believe, with a few others, that one of the forms of Alzheimer's disease is type 3 diabetes, which means that because the insulin no longer brings the sugar down in the brain, it goes crazy high in your brain, and that actually begins to cascade towards Alzheimer's disease. So I take metformin every day. It's going to have a very interesting study to also see if it has other anti-aging effects. But in retrospective studies, people on metformin live longer, and people with COVID, it also has a great effect in preventing serious severity of the COVID disease. Then I also take, if you take metformin, you have trouble absorbing B12, so I take B12 supplement, and you also need a little bit of calcium every 3rd day, so I do that. Then astaxanthin, a potent antioxidant, occasionally take that, not real science. Being over the age of 50, I take Crestor, a statin, again showing a role in cancer. I'm less concerned about it from the cardiovascular side, but more for the other aspects of statins. I take vitamin D3, particularly now with COVID, and B3, again, now because of COVID, not normally. And then fish oil for sure. I'd like to get Visipa, but they just got it in the UK now. And that's a fish oil, which has anti-inflammatory effects, which are quite profound. Zinc and lithium, one boosts the immune system, the other one has had interesting effects in longevity, again, supplement. So the 2 meds and then a number of supplements is the shorter answer.
How do you have time to work after ingesting all those?
Yeah. Ray Kurzweil was on 250 supplements at one point. And Declan, my partner, former head of drug development at Pfizer, goes, can you imagine how they coagulated his stomach and the drug-to-drug interaction? He's now cut down to 150 supplements a day, so you should short the stock of whatever pharmacy he was dealing with.